Welcome to the lands of science fiction stories. I wish you a pleasant listening experience.
The Galactic Council sat in stunned silence, the murmur of disbelief barely audible as the latest update from the Central Galactic Database flashed on their holographic screens. A stern-faced Zyrian diplomat adjusted his glasses and leaned forward, his emerald eyes narrowing. Humans have officially been classified as fiction? The council members, a mix of various alien species, exchanged uncertain glances. It wasn't often that a species was considered too absurd to be real. According to the latest data review, humans, or Homo sapiens, were nothing more than a collection of embellished myths spread by overzealous traders and spacefarers. Seated at the edge of the Grand Council chamber was Commander Velis Darnak, a rugged Vrexian warrior who had seen countless conflicts across the galaxy. Velis, unlike the others, wasn't entirely convinced that humanity was pure myth. He had heard tales from old mercenaries, stories that painted humans not as mere footnotes in galactic history but as a force that once struck fear into the heart of entire empires. Velis tapped his metallic claw against the table as he mulled over the news. "This is dangerous thinking," he muttered to himself. "If humans are real, and everything I've heard about them is true, then dismissing them as fiction might be the greatest mistake the galaxy ever makes." Commander Velis wasn't alone in his suspicions. Deep in the fringes of the galaxy, in a forgotten sector, Captain Orion Tark of the Spectre had come across rumors that hinted at something far more tangible than myths. The Spectre was a renowned vessel, its crew specialized in collecting rare artifacts and lost knowledge from forgotten worlds. And now, they were on the trail of something truly extraordinary. Orion, a human himself, stood at the helm of his ship, staring at the map of Sector X-14, the alleged resting place of Earth. He brushed a hand through his dark hair, his piercing blue eyes scanning the data. The galaxy believed that humanity's home world, if it ever existed, was long destroyed. But Orion knew better. The existence of humans had been intentionally buried by powerful factions that feared what humanity represented, an unpredictable, dangerous species capable of thriving in environments that would kill even the most advanced races. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates," said Lyra, his second-in-command, her voice tinged with excitement. Lyra was an Orin, her sleek metallic skin shimmering under the low lights of the bridge. "If Earth really exists," Orion grinned, the thrill of discovery igniting within him. "If Earth exists, we're about to uncover the greatest secret in the galaxy." Back on the Galactic Council's capital world, the debate raged on. The Council's ruling class continued to mock the very idea of human existence, brushing off any dissent as nothing more than fear-mongering. But Commander Velis Darnak wasn't ready to let the matter rest. He had spent his life hunting the galaxy's most dangerous predators, and humans, well, they were supposedly the deadliest of all. He couldn't shake the feeling that the Council was making a terrible mistake by ignoring the warnings of old. In the dim light of his quarters, Velis retrieved a data chip he had hidden away for years. It contained forbidden archives, ones that detailed humanity's last stand against the Galactic Consortium centuries ago. As the holovids flickered to life, Velis saw them, humans clad in ancient battle armor, their ferocious eyes gleaming as they fought against overwhelming odds. The records showed that despite being technologically inferior, humans were relentless in their pursuit of victory. They fought in conditions that would break even the most hardened alien soldiers, their adaptability and sheer will unmatched by anything the galaxy had seen before. Velis clenched his fist. "If they're still out there, we need to be prepared." Meanwhile, deep within the fringes of the galaxy, Orion Tark and his crew had made a startling discovery. They stood before the remnants of an ancient human colony, long abandoned but eerily well-preserved. Orion couldn't help but feel the weight of history bearing down on him as they explored the crumbling structures. "This is remarkable," Lyra whispered, running her fingers over the strange glyphs etched into the walls. "This technology, primitive yet resilient. They were survivors." Orion's heart raced as they delved deeper into the ruins, uncovering more evidence that humans had once thrived here, isolated from the rest of the galaxy. But then, they stumbled upon something far more intriguing, a hidden chamber deep beneath the colony. Inside, they found a stasis pod, its occupant unmistakably human. "Activate it," Orion commanded, his voice filled with urgency. As the pod hissed open, the crew stepped back in shock. The man inside slowly stirred, his eyes flickering open as he adjusted to the light. He was tall, muscular, and his body was covered in scars, battle-hardened, a warrior in every sense. The man's gaze locked onto Orion, and a slow, predatory smile spread across his lips. "So, they finally found me." The newly awakened human, whose name was Hayden Vexer, had been in stasis for centuries, kept alive by a combination of ancient technology and raw human resilience. As he regained his strength, he told Orion and his crew of humanity's fall from grace. The galaxy had feared humans because of their raw power, their ability to outthink, outlast, and outfight nearly every other species. "They couldn't control us," Hayden explained, his voice low and filled with anger. "So they erased us from history. They turned us into myths." Orion listened intently, his mind racing with the implications. The galaxy believed humans were nothing more than stories, yet here was proof that they were not only real but had been deliberately hidden from the rest of the universe. Hayden's eyes gleamed with dark intent. "We were their greatest fear, Captain. And now that I'm free, it's time to remind them why." As the Spectre prepared to leave the forgotten world, Hayden stood at the viewport, staring out at the stars. The weight of history and vengeance hung heavy on his shoulders. Orion approached him, his expression thoughtful. "What happens now?" Orion asked. Hayden's grin widened. "Now, we remind the galaxy that humans aren't just fiction. We're nightmares made flesh." The stars beyond twinkled ominously as the Spectre set course for the heart of the galaxy. The truth was out there, and soon the galaxy would tremble at the return of its most dangerous species. The Spectre drifted through the void of space, its engines humming softly as it sped towards the inner systems of the Galactic Council's territory. Inside, tension filled the air as the crew prepared for what was to come. Hayden Vexer stood on the bridge, his arms crossed, watching the stars blur by. There was a predatory stillness to him, a quiet intensity that unsettled even the most hardened of the crew. Orion approached him, glancing at the silent figure of the ancient human warrior. "You've been quiet since we left the ruins." Hayden's piercing eyes met his. "I'm thinking about the past and the future. The galaxy has grown soft in our absence, Captain. They've forgotten what true war looks like." Orion tilted his head slightly. "And you plan to remind them?" Hayden's lips curled into a slow smile, but there was no warmth in it. "Oh, I intend to do much more than that." Lyra, who had been monitoring the communications, chimed in, her voice tinged with concern. "Captain, we're approaching the edge of Council-controlled space. If they detect us, we'll be flagged immediately." Orion frowned, his mind racing. "Activate the cloaking system. I don't want us on anyone's radar until it's too late." Hayden chuckled softly, the sound dark and menacing. "Stealthy. I like that. But once we make our move, Captain, there's no going back." Orion looked at him, eyes firm. "I didn't come this far to hesitate, Hayden. If the galaxy needs a reminder of what humanity is capable of, we'll give it to them." The Galactic Council's capital, Zenith Prime, was a hub of opulence and power, its towering spires gleaming against the planet's atmosphere. Within its grand chambers, discussions and debates raged, as the ruling species continued to dismiss the idea of humans as mere fiction. High Chancellor Erix was addressing the assembly, his voice dripping with authority. "The myths surrounding humanity are a product of overactive imaginations. There is no evidence to support their existence. We must focus our resources on more pressing matters." His words were cut short by a sudden ripple through the room's communications network. A shadowy figure appeared on the central holoscreen, cloaked in darkness. The council members gasped, leaning forward in their seats. "Who dares interrupt this session?" Erix growled, his fists clenching. The figure's voice was deep and commanding. "You dismissed us as myths, as legends to frighten children. You forgot about the humans, but we did not forget about you." The room fell silent, a palpable wave of fear rippling through the council. Erix's eyes widened, recognizing the voice. "Impossible, sir." "We are coming," the figure interrupted. Prepare your defenses, Chancellor. Humanity has returned. The transmission cut off, leaving the council members in stunned silence. Fear began to creep into their minds as whispers of old stories resurfaced, tales of human ferocity and unstoppable will. "Summon the fleets," Eric's commanded, his voice trembling with barely contained panic. "If the humans are real, they must be stopped before they reach the core systems." Orion stood at the helm of the Spectre, his heart pounding as the ship moved deeper into council-controlled space. The crew worked diligently, every movement precise and calculated. They all knew what was at stake. Hayden, standing near the viewport, watched the council's defenses with a mixture of amusement and disdain. "Look at them," he said, his voice filled with contempt. "They're scrambling like frightened children. They think they can stop us with their fleets." Orion glanced at the tactical display, showing the growing concentration of council warships. "They're not going to make this easy for us." "They don't need to," Hayden replied, his grin widening. "We'll do it the hard way. It's better that way." Lyra's voice broke the tension. "Captain, we've been detected. Multiple enemy vessels are moving to intercept." Orion tightened his grip on the console. "Activate the cloaking systems. We'll slip past them before they can engage." The Spectre shimmered as its cloaking field enveloped the ship, rendering it invisible to the pursuing warships. As they maneuvered through the fleet, the tension on the bridge was palpable. Hayden watched with interest, his eyes gleaming. "You're good at this, Captain. I can see why you've lasted this long out here." Orion smirked. "You haven't seen anything yet." They weaved through the enemy lines, avoiding detection with precision. But as they neared Zenith Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Council, the real challenge awaited them. As the Spectre drifted in orbit above Zenith Prime, Orion and Hayden gathered with the crew in the war room. A holographic projection of the planet hovered before them, displaying the layout of the capital city and its key structures. "We're not here for an all-out assault," Orion began, his eyes scanning the faces of his crew. "We need to send a message, something that will make the Council realize what they're dealing with." Hayden leaned forward, his eyes burning with intensity. "We'll hit them where it hurts the most. Their seat of power, their precious leaders. Once we take the heart of their empire, the rest will fall." Lyra frowned, her metallic skin glinting in the low light. "We'll be walking into the lion's den. They'll have security measures we can't anticipate. That's why we strike fast and without warning," Hayden replied. "We take control before they even realize what's happening." Orion nodded in agreement. "This isn't just about victory, it's about reminding them that humanity is not something they can sweep under the rug." As they finalized their plan, the crew moved with practiced efficiency, preparing for the upcoming infiltration. The stakes were higher than ever, and failure wasn't an option. The night sky over Zenith Prime was still, but it wouldn't remain that way for long. The Spectre descended silently through the atmosphere, cloaked and invisible to the planet's defense systems. As it hovered over the capital, a small team, led by Hayden and Orion, prepared for deployment. Hayden adjusted his combat gear, his muscles flexing beneath the armored plating. "It's been a long time since I've felt the rush of a real fight." Orion glanced at him, smirking. "Don't get too comfortable. This isn't just about the fight, it's about making them understand who we are." The team deployed, their stealth suits activating as they moved through the shadows of the city. They were a whisper in the night, unseen and unheard. As they approached the Council's grand chamber, the air was thick with anticipation. "Positions," Orion ordered quietly. The team moved into place, each member ready to strike. Inside the chamber, the Council was in an emergency session, debating how to respond to the threat of humanity's return. But before they could make a decision, the doors burst open. Hayden stepped into the room, his presence commanding as he stared down the council members. "You thought you could erase us," he growled, his voice carrying through the chamber. "But humanity doesn't fade. We survive. We thrive. And now, we conquer." Panic erupted as the council scrambled to react, but it was too late. Orion's team moved with deadly precision, securing the chamber and locking down the council's defenses. Hayden smiled darkly as he approached Chancellor Eric's, who stood frozen in fear. "Now you understand," Hayden said, his voice low and dangerous. We're not myths. We're the future. The galaxy would never be the same again. Hayden stood before Chancellor Erix, his towering figure casting a long shadow over the trembling leader of the Galactic Council. The council chamber, once the center of political power in the galaxy, now lay in silence, broken only by the distant rumble of alarms. Orion and his crew had sealed the exits, and there was no escape for the council. Chancellor Erix, his voice barely a whisper, tried to muster some semblance of defiance. You can't just overthrow centuries of order. The galaxy will rise against you. Humanity is nothing but a relic of the past. Hayden's hand shot out, gripping Erix by the throat and cutting him off mid-sentence. Order! Hayden growled, his eyes gleaming with dark fury. You call this order? You built your empire on lies and erased us from history. But humans don't die easily, Chancellor. We adapt. We endure. And now we take back what's ours. Erix struggled in Hayden's grasp, his hands clawing uselessly at the warrior's iron grip. The fear in his eyes was palpable, and in that moment he knew that the council's reign was over. Orion stepped forward, his gaze hard. The galaxy won't rise against us. It will bend to our will just like you will. You had your chance to live in peace, but you chose to bury the truth. Now we'll make sure the truth is known. With a final, sharp twist, Hayden released Erix, sending him crumpling to the floor. The Chancellor gasped for breath, his pride shattered as much as his authority. Around the chamber, the remaining council members stood frozen in terror, powerless against the force that had stormed their gates. Orion raised his chin, addressing the entire room. Spread the word, humanity has returned, and we won't be forgotten again. The silence in the chamber was deafening. The council, once the supreme rulers of the galaxy, were now nothing more than remnants of a broken era. As Hayden turned to leave, his voice echoed through the chamber, carrying a final message that would ripple through the stars. This is only the beginning. The galaxy will know fear again, fear of humanity. The team moved with precision, exiting the chamber and returning to the Spectre, leaving the council in shambles. As they boarded the ship, the realization of what they had done settled over them. Lyra looked out at the distant stars, her voice soft but steady. What happens now? Orion, standing at the helm, smiled darkly. Now we rebuild. We take what was stolen from us, and we remind the galaxy that humanity is not to be trifled with. Hayden, standing beside him, crossed his arms, his voice filled with a cold satisfaction. We're no longer the myth. We're the reality. As the Spectre rose into the atmosphere, the stars beyond shimmered with the promise of a new dawn, a dawn led by the humans who had once been erased from the galaxy's story. But now they were writing their own chapter, and it would be written in fire and blood. The era of the Galactic Council had ended. The era of humanity had begun.